Let's start with you, Shubhra, and what's your function with Blackbaud?
Hi, so this is Shubhra here. I'm the senior NetSuite consultant at Blackbaud, and I've been implementing NetSuite for a whole heap of Australian customers for the last 7 years. And I've primarily been implementing NetSuite here at the subsidiary levels. So we did an implementation at Sydney, followed by Brisbane, and then followed by Ireland.
Okay. And you're with Rui?
Yes.
So I'm also part of the team from NetSuite here, more on the developer side. So also belong to others team will be supporting here the local Australian entities and also Ireland, and in the future as well, when needed, the US implementations as well.
Okay. And Nick, I see that you're on the call as well?
Yes. Nick, I'm a tax analyst, and I work under Jill and Teresa.
Okay, perfect.
You want to just go around the room here?
I'm sorry?
Well, there's like 6 of us in the room with Nick.
Oh, okay. Yep, go ahead.
This is Jill. I'm in the tax department as well. Teresa Wise in the tax department.
Corey Eck, program manager. Chris, I know you've been in touch with Brendan Kilrow. I'll be working in his placement moving forward, so if you want to just contact me directly, we can do that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That was who again? I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names.
My name's Corey Eck. I've been CC'd on a lot of stuff that you guys have been exchanging, so.
Perfect. Yep, I've got your information.
Yep.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks for joining.
This is Terry Uby, financial systems analyst, specializing in SAP FICO. So.
And you've got Heather here as well. I was the one who saw the initial demo that you did, Chris. I'm the manager of our IT financial systems here at Blackbaud.
Awesome. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Good. You were in Australia last week, right, I think?
I was.
Awesome. How was that?
I was with Rui and Shubhra last week, actually.
Wow. That's a lot. A lot of frequent flyer miles. So kind of what I want to do today is just kind of want to recap a lot of the things. That's going to be what you already saw, a couple weeks ago, Heather, and I just kind of want to reiterate a lot of those things. My name again is Chris Rossini. I work here at Avalara. I'm based out of Durham, North Carolina, and I work within our NetSuite practice. My main functionality with the company is to talk to new clients that are not using Avalara, that are already using or are planning to use NetSuite as their ERP system in the future. Just to kind of go over the scope of what the client's sales and use tax profile looks like, and then kind of just explain how those services work within the Avalara system and how they interact within the NetSuite ERP. So I just kind of want to recap a couple of things before we get started, just to make sure that nothing's changed. I'm assuming it hasn't, but just want to make sure that everything's on the same page. The majority of what we're going to talk about from a sales and use tax perspective are exemption certificates, and then the filing and the remittance piece. If I'm understanding it correctly, there's not a whole lot of sales and use tax calculations for your particular software package, because mainly you're selling to nonprofits and in the nonprofit sector. So even though Avalara has an extremely robust calculation engine in the way that it can calculate and remit sales tax calculations for a variety of products and services, I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on that. Because it really doesn't apply to what your business is. I'm going to, like I said, the majority of the time is going to be spent discussing how our exemption certificate engine works and discussing how we file and remit sales and use tax returns.
We actually do calculate quite a bit of sales tax because there are several states that don't exempt nonprofits, and then there are certain products that are not exempt in those areas. So, I mean, we do, the tax decision making is a big part of what we need. Not all exempt. I'm not quite sure for a software company, it's not all exempt.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. I mean, then I'll talk about it. Absolutely. I just went back into my presentation and unhid those slides. So absolutely, we'll discuss we'll discuss everything. I think that would be the easiest way. Thank you for that. That's why I like to do these recaps. So Nexus in all 50 states pretty much conceded everything. So you're registered and you're collecting sales tax where applicable in all 50 states, or 46 states, I should say. Currently, for the U.S. side of things, you're an SAP shop using the CCH Office product that's integrated with Teams for your exempt certificate piece. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then we're still contemplating a move over to the NetSuite ERP system.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. So good recap. So what I'll do is I've got a presentation that I want to run through, a PowerPoint presentation. I promise I'll try not to bore you to death with it. We'll run through a couple of things from a practicality standpoint, and then we will kind of go into NetSuite and kind of poke around a little bit and see how everything works. Is that all right?
Yeah, good.
Perfect, awesome. So from a high-level view, Avalara offers the entire solution. It's an end-to-end sales and use tax solution from start to finish. We begin with tax rate calculations, and I'll go into a lot of this stuff in more detail, but we start with the sales tax rate calculation based on a couple of factors. One, where's the product coming from, where's the product going, and what is the product or service being consumed by the end user. Once we have the correct calculations, another piece of the puzzle is certificate management, which is obviously a big part for you guys. If your client is not subject to sales tax calculations or sales tax collection, you've obviously got to have the correct documentation on file on your end to prove to anyone, an auditor or client, that you didn't collect the sales tax. And then finally, when all is said and done, you got to wrap a bow around everything and file and remit the sales tax returns on behalf of the client and to the different jurisdictions. So it's an end-to-end solution with Avalara. It's a complete outsource for sales and use tax capabilities, and it's built right within the NetSuite ERP system. Within the NetSuite ERP system, right out of the box, you have functionality called the Advanced Tax Module. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this. I'm sure Jeff's gone over it. I'm sure it's been discussed. With the Advanced Tax Module, Avalara will override that entire process. And here's some of the key differences between what the Avalara suite is going to offer versus what you have in the Advanced Tax. Number one, the rate data that's used in the Advanced Tax Module is all based on zip code, or zip code +5 jurisdictional boundaries. I'm going to illustrate to where in some parts of the country that's not an accurate depiction. There's some subdivisions and there's some zip codes that have multiple sales tax rate jurisdictions within them, and a zip code can kind of throw you off. Secondly, the Advanced Tax Module does not have the ability to determine differing product taxability right out of the box. You guys are offering a very diverse sales tax, from a sales tax standpoint, product. A lot of states do not understand or have not figured out the best way to tax downloadable software, canned software. Is it coming from the cloud? Is it coming from here? What about the maintenance? What about the subscription fees? It differs all over the place. The Advanced Tax Module, without some customization on the NetSuite side, can only deem a product as taxable or not taxable. And you'll have to maintain that taxability throughout the process. If something changes it, you have to go back in and change the rule. With Avalara, we're going to be able to maintain the product taxability for your entire product line in real time without you having to maintain that on your side. Thirdly, your Advanced Tax Module is going to require a lot of user intervention. You're going to be required to upload the new table every month. You're going to be required to maintain any product rules that you've got customly filled. You're going to have to maintain all of that by a human being. It's going to take resources and money from an internal side to make that happen. With the Avalara module built into NetSuite, we maintain everything for you in real time. So if a state or a jurisdiction happens to make a change mid-month, we'll change it immediately. There's no need for you to go and research those changes. I'll show that as we talk through everything. And lastly, the sales tax reporting and audit trail is not really available or easily managed with the Advanced Tax Module. You've got to do some digging and some customization to get those reports to look the way you want them. There's no state rulings or citations from the state to defend in an audit. With the Avalara module, you get both. You get very user-friendly and easy reporting to where with the click of a button, I can pull a number of different reports for you, and you can use the information however you wish. And lastly, in the event of an audit or an event of a client asking a question about a rate or how we did what we did, we can provide state rulings and citations from those states to you directly that could be defended in an audit. So conceptually, this is how the module works, and it should, it's really simple in its nature. The connector, which is here, is the piece of software that's going to communicate between your NetSuite invoice, sales order, or sales proposal, whatever, what have you. Is going to communicate directly with the Avalara platform, which is cloud software. Because NetSuite is a cloud ERP, and because our platform is cloud as well, the two systems talk very nicely to each other. As a matter of fact, those that are in the room from an IT standpoint, the connector is written in SuiteScript, which is the native language of NetSuite. So it's the easiest connector that we have, and the advantage for the end user is that it's installed right in the toolbar, which I'll show in a second as well. And there's no action that your end user needs to take. The order entry person entering invoices, the salesperson entering the quotes, whatever you're doing within NetSuite can happen in real time without any change. You're not having to go back and forth. In the cloud, Avalara is responsible for maintaining all of your content and all of the rates and the rules. We get that information a couple different ways. One, the states provide it to Avalara free. They just give it to us. 18 states give it to us at no cost. Some of the states actually pay Avalara to give them their rate information. So we already have that. And then the other states, we just do it the old-fashioned way. We have a content team of about 100 people that do nothing but mapping out sales tax jurisdiction and monitoring sales tax changes from a product taxability standpoint. If the Avalara module is on board, Avalara is responsible and guarantees the rates that are calculated within your NetSuite system. That's a guarantee that we now offer. When it comes time to file and remit, we dump all of the information out of the cloud, submit it right to the state, and we do all of that at one time, and I'll explain that as we go forward as well. So conceptually, that's how it works. It just becomes part of NetSuite, everything works together in the cloud, and it just automatically appears. So the first product we'll talk about is Avalara Avatax. Avalara Avatax is the system in the module that automatically assigns hundreds of thousands of taxability rules and the latest jurisdictional boundaries that delivers the rate at all times. So this is the calculation piece of the engine. One of the first things that we'll talk about is I mentioned in an earlier slide that the advanced tax module uses zip codes. Avalara actually will use the rooftop location of the end user. When you're inputting the origin and the destination addresses into the NetSuite system, whether it's a sales quote, proposal, or invoice, we're going to be pinging the actual rooftop location. This is a map of the United States, and all of the different colors are representing a different sales tax jurisdiction. There's 43,000 zip codes, and there's 11,000 sales tax jurisdictions. So unfortunately, if you're going to use advanced tax module with just zip code replication, you're going to be inaccurate in some cases. And this is an example of that. This is a suburb of Denver, Colorado, Commerce City, Colorado. This is the exact same subdivision in the exact same zip code. What you'll notice is the homes that are shaded in green, they have a sales tax rate of 4.75%. The homes that are shaded in blue have a sales tax rate of 9.25%. And these homes are on the same street. So the real question is, what did this person do to upset the mayor? Conversely, what did this person do right? Because that's what I want to know. If you're going to use zip code plus 5 for your tax jurisdictions, you can see a delta here of 4.5%. In an audit situation, an auditor is going to come in and sample your invoices. They're not going to look at each invoice. If the auditor finds a delta in the sampling of the invoice, they could apply that same delta across all invoices. If you've been charging 4.75 and you were supposed to be charging 9.25, you're now on the hook for the difference. It could be a substantial penalty for that company. So with the Avalara suite, we're going to ensure that if this is the end user, this is the rate that's being applied. If this is the end user, this is the rate that's being applied. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. All right, let's talk about product taxability. So I've got a simple example. It's a bagel. In the city of New York, or in the state of New York, one of these is taxable and one of these is not taxable. Any idea which is which?
The sliced one, flour, one has wheat. No, the sliced one is off the shelf, ready to eat fast food, and the unsliced one is food you buy at the grocery store.
That's exactly right. And the state of New York taxes those differently. The sliced bagel that's ready to eat is a taxable item. There's sales tax charged to that. The grocery item that's not sliced is not taxable.
They're making me hungry.
You guys are selling software. Well, that's a lot more, that's way more complicated than a bagel. Here's another crazy example. In the state of Colorado, a fast food drink, the cup, the straw, and the lid. Any idea which is taxable and which is not? I love these examples. So the cup is not taxable, but the lid and the straw is taxable. So next time you're driving through Denver, Colorado, make sure, number one, that you live in the house that's got 4.25%, and make sure you don't get the lid and the straw. Save yourself some money there. I'll give one more example that's not on the slide. A Milky Way or a Milky Way Dark. What's the difference between those two? So one has flour and one does not. The Milky Way has flour, the Milky Way Dark does not. That one ingredient makes one taxable and one not in the state of Indiana. Those are simple examples that are off-the-shelf items that a lot of people, including myself before I got into this business, would assume has the exact same sales tax rate. The point that I try to make with these examples is that product taxability varies in every single jurisdiction that you're going to have a client. Without Avalara on board, you would have to go write custom tax rules for each of these items within the NetSuite ERP to maintain that rate of taxability. Avalara is going to maintain that rate of taxability against all of your products in real time. And I'll show an example of that when I do an invoice. So from a tax calculation standpoint, I'm going to make sure that the rate is 100% accurate based on the origin and the destination of the end user, based on the product of the end user. And that means the quantity of items that they're purchasing and the amount that they're purchasing. The reason the amount is so important, in states like New York, if an item of clothing is $100 or more, it's taxable. If it's $100 or less, it's not. So the amount of money is important as well. I'll move on to CertCapture. CertCapture is our product that's part of the AvaTax console that maintains and handles all of your exemption and resale certificates electronically. All of these are maintained in real time and are integrated into the NetSuite ERP system. So it all works automatically together. We start with certificate requests. Certificate requests are going to be done on the front end by a bulk import. We're going to take all of your current exempt clients, export them out of whatever system that you're going to export them out of, whether it be SAP or NetSuite. I would assume it would be part of the go live with NetSuite. And we would import all of those clients into the CertCapture platform at one time. After you have your existing client base installed, then we'll be sending out requests to new clients. The system allows you to do that with, you can send one or thousands of certificate requests with the click of a button. No more paper. That's all done through a collection wizard. It's a secure site that you'll send out to your end user that they'll be able to go online. They'll be able to fill out the form completely and correctly. And then that form, once it's been completed and signed, will be uploaded to the NetSuite ERP automatically. Storage retrieval is a key for us, obviously, and it's a key for you. In the event that you need to pull a series of certificates or a series of data, everything's stored digitally in a central database, and everything is uploaded and can be at your fingertips in a matter of seconds. It's fantastic for audit defense. It's fantastic for a client that says that they should have or shouldn't have a particular form. NetSuite integration is obviously paramount. The information is integrated directly within the NetSuite ERP. You never have to leave the system to handle everything. It's all done right there. And then finally, renewal management. I'm going to show you through the portal in just a moment when I do the demonstration that you can automatically pull reports and have reports automatically generate to show you which clients have an exposure for 90 days out, 60 days out, 120 days out. And an email can be automatically generated to those clients to shoot out a notification to say, hey, please fill this form out and send it back or you're subject to sales tax. So the CertCapture system is one source of truth for your certificate management. And talking with Heather in our last conversation, she mentioned that the product that you're using right now has a lot of this functionality. One of the issues, though, is it's a separate system. Part of your move to a NetSuite ERP system is trying to consolidate everything under one umbrella. The Avalara CertCapture program will allow you to do that. Last piece of the puzzle is going to be the Avalara returns piece. Avalara returns piece is going to import all of your transactional data directly from NetSuite. It's going to be a one-stop shop. All of your transactions go out of NetSuite into my platform. Once a month, you're simply going to log into the platform, approve the data that's good. Avalara is going to do a one-time ACH out of your sales tax payable account. Avalara will then be on the hook to file the returns correctly, on time, and remit payment to each individual jurisdiction. So you just push a button.
Can I ask a question really quickly? Do you have the ability to allow us to do the returns ourselves, or is your only option that you do the returns?
You can absolutely do them yourself if you'd like.
Okay, that is what we want to see today. We are not entertaining the outsourcing of the preparation of our return.
Not a problem.
And can I also ask another question? Does Avalara produce reports, the tax, like, you know, the tax certificates and tax reports for out of US countries as well? I mean, Australia and New Zealand have much simpler tax rules, but is it out of the box for other countries as well?
It is. Yes, ma'am. We support 165 countries today.
Thank you.
And what I will show you, to go back to whoever asked the questions about the returns, I will show you the report that you could pull from Avalara to do those returns.
Okay, now we want to do the returns in the Avalara software. We don't want to, make sure I'm clear, we want to be able to use the Avalara software to do the return.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah, what I meant to outsource is you're going to outsource that to me. So yeah, I'll show you that. It'll make more sense.
We're not going to outsource that to you. We just want the data to go on the form for us, and then we want to handle either filing it electronically with the state or sending them a file, and we want to make the payments ourselves. Yeah, we're not going to outsource that.
Okay. Yep.
Is that option available?
Yes.
With Avalara? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I can show you. Well, I don't have that in my demo environment, but I can show you the report and send you screenshots of how we do that. Because I don't have that in my demo account, but I will show you how that works in screenshots, or we can do a follow-up call. In other words, you want to be able to push a button and have the form pop up, and then you do with the form what you wish.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. We can do that. Any other questions on that? Okay. All right, one more slide to show before I jump into everything. This is a sample of clients that are currently using Avalara. I don't like to talk about all the logos that are under our umbrella. The only one I want to point out to you is NetSuite. So NetSuite is one of Avalara's clients. NetSuite pays Avalara to maintain all of their sales and use tax obligations. It's not free. They pay us to do it. Other companies that are similar to you, Sugar CRM, ESET, a lot of different types of software companies are using Avalara today. Software is tough to maintain internally, so Avalara handles a lot of that. So I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint. Everyone can see NetSuite?
Yep.
Okay. So as I mentioned, when the bundle is installed, which is what we do here internally for you, Avalara shows up directly on the toolbar. So Avalara, once it's been installed, now becomes a part of all of NetSuite, not just portions of it. So if you're going to input a sales quote, a sales proposal, you can include sales tax on those items. Some companies are not doing that today because they don't trust their sales guys to pick the right table, and I don't blame them. With AvaTax, everything's going to default to one particular drop-down for a tax code, and it'll all be accurate across the board. I'm going to show you how we input an invoice, so I can show you the granularity and how it would work. Assume that you can do the same thing for a proposal or a quote. So when I create an invoice, I click the link. I'm going to select my customer, which is exactly what you would do now. All of the information that's behind this customer on the customer card would populate. And I'm going to add some items in my invoice. First thing I want to add is a software maintenance contract. Here's the biggest difference. With the advanced tax module, you would have to select which of these tax tables you want to go with. With the AvaTax platform, you just simply select AvaTax, and everything will be defaulted to the correct rate. I'll add this line. I'm getting sales tax calculations pretty quickly in my summary box up here. The next thing I'll add is the actual software itself that's attached to the maintenance contract. And then I'm just adding it and choosing Avatar. Typically, when I save this invoice, the transaction is going to take place and everything will be committed within 0.4 of a second. Takes a little bit longer in a demo environment, but now that everything's been confirmed, I now have a correct sales tax rate with the tax code Avatax. If I want to find out exactly what the tax rate represents, I click on Avatax and I open my document number. From here, I'm going to get a breakout of this invoice. This is a California invoice, so the first item is software maintenance associated to this particular tax code, which is an Avalara specific number. Half is exempt, half is taxable. So 500 is exempt, 500 is taxable, and the tax rate is as displayed. 6.5% to California, 1% to the county, 0.5% to the special tax jurisdiction. The software itself associated with this tax code is not taxable at all. So it's all exempt with this particular rate. So on the invoice of $11,000, the total tax is $40, and it's broken out here. If I wanted to be more granular, I'll click over, and I'll show you the Avatax console, which you also have access to. So in real time, the transaction that we've just committed, Avatax transaction 4683, will show up here. I get the same information where I have my origin, my destination, and my tax rate. The only additional information that I get here is the tax code, and I'll speak to that really quickly. So you guys at Blackbaud, when you input everything into your item master within NetSuite, you have identifying numbers or letters or a combination of both to identify that package. It's a SKU number, a product number, and identification number that's unique to you. When that information gets passed over to Avalara, I have to convert the information over to language that Avatax can speak and can understand. That's called a tax code. So part of your go live and implementation is categorizing the items that are in your item master and then associating those items with the appropriate tax code. So when that invoice makes the call out to Avalara, Avalara knows exactly how to tax that particular line on the invoice. That information is made available here in the Avatax platform. The other piece of information that's made available is sourcing. Sourcing is important in some states. In most states, it's not, because most states are going to consider the destination address to be the source of truth. In some states, like in Illinois, they may consider the origin address the source of truth, which is where they do the calculation. In some states, like California and Texas, it's a hybrid. Depending upon where the product came from or where the product's going, depends upon the sourcing. So you can have that information here for that invoice. So from a calculation standpoint, by simply selecting Avatax as the drop-down in the invoice, I'll give you the correct sales tax rate. Any questions on that? Okay. So I'll now move over to the exemption certificate piece. So typically, and where the exemption certificate information lives for Avalara is in the client card. So you'll collect your customer list from your item master. I've got information behind this particular company, so I'll show you what that would look like. You would input all of this information as you normally would. And the address tab is where all of the Avalara buttons live. So these buttons are all Avalara buttons. Validate address, add customer, blah, blah, blah. So one of the features that we have with the Avalara console is we can correct addresses. This particular address is incorrect. It's corporate packway instead of corporate parkway. If I highlight the address and validate it, it'll ping the USPS system and it'll make a correction. I realize you guys may not ship out a lot of product, but you can always have updated addresses within your customer card to where if you do ship product out to a client, you won't have any return shipments coming back because the address is correct. You'll notice that we've corrected it to Parkway, and we've changed the city to Birmingham instead of Hoover based on that zip code. If we've deemed this customer to be exempt, To get a certificate on file, if you don't have one already, you simply click this button, Request Exemption Certificate. When that happens, an email that looks just like this is going to go out to your client. It's not going to come from me, obviously. It's going to be addressed to them. It's going to look like it comes directly from you. It'll be in letterhead, and it'll ask the client to click on the link with a specific login and password to complete the form. They'll click the link and be directed to this site. All of the information that was saved within NetSuite Customer Card will transfer over. There's a few things that won't. You simply input those, agree to the terms and conditions, and click Continue. It's now going to take them through a wizard. I realize that this is a lot of states because I'm in a demo environment. It will only be the states that you require them to complete a form for. I'll just select a state. They can fill it out online. They're going to be asked a series of questions as to why. And they'll walk through a wizard and complete the form. It'll complete over here. When they've completed it, they'll sign it, and they'll create the certificate. When they've created the certificate, it goes through a series of checks and balances and shows back up here into NetSuite. At this point, this customer is now marked as an exempt status as long as that certificate remains valid. If the certificate becomes not valid, this customer will not be exempt and be charged sales tax on any other future orders.
So I have a question. Our current process automatically sends out an email to new customers if they say that they're exempt. We don't have to click a button. Is that something that's possible with this?
I don't know. I'll have to let you know. So when you're doing your what we'd have to do is find the trigger to send out the email. So if you mark them tax exempt, I don't know. I'll let you know. That's an action item for me.
Okay. So how
Let me just make sure I understand. So if you're creating your customer and there's a checkbox that says tax exempt, which I'll have to find if there is one. As soon as we click the button tax exempt, will the address go out? Will the email go out?
This is all done based on the contract that they sign. They say whether they are taxable or not. And if they say they are not taxable, then that triggers this whole automated process for them to receive an email and say, for the particular state that they're shipped to is, and they don't even have to pick it, it's a particular state. So if you are an Indiana customer and you mark your contract and say you're exempt, then that night you're going to get an email that says, here's the Indiana exemption certificate that you need to complete. And it's going to be very specific to just the exemption certificate for that nonprofit entity and or any other supporting information they have to provide. So we need the ability to be able to customize your screens, that we're not giving them a whole list of states to choose from and a whole list of questions to answer, that we're very narrowly specific and make it easy on the customer to complete this information. These are very small nonprofits that are not very sophisticated and don't have a lot of time to spend, and so we've spent a lot of time with our current vendor, and we have had the ability to customize with our current vendor at no cost to us. So we need to be able to do the exact same thing with your product, and we need to know.
Yeah, that I can do. Yeah, so customizing the request I can do. You know, making sure that the end user, the nonprofit, is only filling out what they need and making it very simple, I can do. I didn't illustrate that very well in the demonstration because I had a lot of stuff in there because it's a demo environment. But customizing the request to just click a button and then sign it and press go, that's absolutely something we can do.
With the validation, we would like, excuse me, I'm sorry, we would like the validation to be in the software for the customer to know right at that moment when they complete the exemption certificate that they've entered all the information correctly. For example, if they have to put in their state tax number of some sort, and if they put in a 9-digit number, it's supposed to be a 10-digit number, we want the customer to know that right away. We don't want that coming back into NetSuite and then us having to figure it out and send another request in. That's
all of that will happen.
Okay, we need to see that. We need to be able to see that very, very distinctly because this is huge for us. We have a lot of exempt customers, and this is a big deal, and we've spent a lot of time with our automation.
In addition, the ability to add additional information that the state may or may not require. For instance, the state of like Massachusetts requires 2 forms of documentation compared to a state like Indiana. So we need to make sure that the ability is customizable right now. Right now, it's currently customizable to where they're able to provide both at once. So we would have to customize the forms to the state to match the state's requirements.
Yep. Okay. I mean, we can do all of that. I need to get a sales engineer to show you on her demo environment. Yeah. But yes, we can do all of it. I can't show you that today, but I will set up another call to show you all of that. The only question mark I have is, do you have to push the button or not? That's my question. Everything else I know we can do. I'll have to get a sales engineer to show it to you, but the pushing of the button here on the address tab is what we need to look at. Yes, that's a follow-up action for me. I can show you all of that stuff, or have her show you all that stuff on the call. What other functionality do you have to have in an exempt software piece?
I think we may have already kind of talked about this, but I think with the exempt software piece, it needs to be very basic, educational, informative for the customer, and as easy for the customer to complete. That is the #1 priority with this, as well as on the flip end for us to be able to utilize this fastly to analyze the information that's given. But I think that's the primary thing that we're looking for in this. And as it's been said, we really have customized this state by state by state by form. So that is what we're looking for in an exemption certificate.
And our customization can't cost us anything. So if you have to do a bunch of work to customize, we can't be charged for that work because our current vendor did not charge us for that work.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Cool. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's something I got to get a sales engineer for. I don't even want to try to pretend to go down that hole because I won't be able to crawl myself out of it. So I'm sorry we have to do another follow-up call, but I'd rather do that and err on the side of caution just so I can show you all of that. I will show, so this is CertCapture. This is the CertCapture demonstration. So, I mean, I can show a few things here. A lot of it's going to be done with the sales engineer. I would have set that up now, but I apologize I didn't. So a couple things you can do here. These are the reports that I mentioned before. You can run a certificate report, and all of these can be set up automatically. I don't have them done that way, obviously, so I can show you how it works in the demo. But all of this can be automated to where you run a certificate expiring soon report in 90 days. You run this report, and all of the information for the customers pop out. You can export this report into a CSV or an Excel format, which is what I've done, just to illustrate how it works. These are all of those customers that are on that list. I can just take these customers, dump them into the engine by doing a search, and then prepare a campaign for them. So I can prepare a campaign based on these certificates, and then I can send out that campaign with your customizations if we can do that, and they all get the automated email that says, please complete these certificates, and then everything goes back into the system.
Another question, currently with our current vendor, we use a mailing system because as nonprofits have a lot of turnover, our contact data information may or may not be accurate. Obviously, with a state like Massachusetts, their exemption certificate may not expire for 15 years, so it's likely or not the same person that we talked with 15 years ago is not with the company. So do y'all provide, and currently we do this at very little cost, a mailing, physical mailing to each client?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, it doesn't work really well because our contact information is not good, and this is a problem just for our company, not just for the tax. So we try to work with a automated way of sending out in advance of the expired certificates about a 90-day turn, but we were finding that they weren't getting to the right place. So this is kind of our plan B. I guess, to say is that our vendor sends the information, mails it out to the a general accounts payable kind of an address rather than a specific person because it wasn't getting there. So that's a good point. We're going to want to understand if that's possible through your software, if that's a service that you can provide to us.
It's possible. It's done through our professional services team for cert capture. I mean, mailing it out is nothing that the software would do. I mean, if we would physically print out the certificates, stuff them and send them out. I mean, that's something that we do. I think it's like 20 cents maybe a form. I don't even know. That's just off the top of my head. So that's something that we can do. It's not part of the initial package. It's a pro services piece. So if you want those mailed out, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, well, just want to understand the cost to do that, an exact amount per mailing.
Sure. Sure.
You have to compare it to what we're paying today.
Yep. Yeah, I think what would be beneficial for everyone is if we could set up, I'd like to set up a call with my cert capture team with just the finance team there that's asking the questions. I don't think the other NetSuite folks, if they want to join, they're certainly welcome to. But I think it would be beneficial to have a call with my director of cert capture to answer a lot of these questions, because that's, I agree, this is the meat and potatoes of what you guys are about. You're going to need stuff that's a little bit more than I'm willing to go down the hole with. So I'd like to set up another call with your team to specifically only talk about cert capture, if that's okay.
That's fine. Yes, that's fine.
So, yeah, so if you can let me know some dates and times on your end at work, I can set that call up whenever you're ready. And that way you can just dig in. I mean, we'll set aside as much time as you want, and we'll just dig into the whole concept.
Okay.
And you don't have to listen to me talk. So really the only other piece that I need to show you guys is the returns piece, which I can't do a really good job of showing you anyway because I need to customize it. So I will go in and show reporting for you. I'll show you what the reports would look like if we pull them. And I understand you just want me to dump those on a form for you and then you guys file and remit on your end. That's another thing that I'll have to do a follow-up and action item on. But from a reporting standpoint, if you wanted to pull a report for a tax return information, I pull this report. It's a state and seller's use tax summary that I generated in HTML, and then it breaks it out by state originally, and then it can break everything out by jurisdiction, and then break it out once again by invoice. So this is a California, and I just keep clicking. And it shows me all of my sales, and then breaks it out by jurisdiction. And then if I click once more, it breaks it out by invoice. So this is the information that we would use to complete the return, or to at least fill out the forms for you.
So in our ideal state, we would like to be able to have this information populate a form that is electronically filed if available, or we would print and mail if available. So we would like to do what you do. We would like to just handle all that on our end rather than having it outsourced to you, if that makes sense.
It does. I just need to make sure, that's another action item. I don't know how far we're going to go. We may give you this report, and that may be as far as we're able to go. That's another, again, I hate to say that we do action items because I don't want you to feel like we wasted our time today. But that's an item that we'll talk about in our next call with cert capture.
Okay. As you can imagine, we're really just looking for an end-to-end solution. So we currently use a software for exemption certificate management, a software for sales tax collection, and another software for the reporting. And since we're going to have to go through the exercise of choosing a vendor yet again, which we just did a year ago, we're going to look at the whole package, end-to-end, sales tax, exemption certificates, the collection, and the return prep. Preferably be all three the same vendor, but if not, then we have to kind of pick our poison. What's the worst? What's the thing we can live without? Kind of approach. So we've put everything under the sun in our requirements, and so we're just going to evaluate all the vendors accordingly.
Yep, I mean, I get it, and I'm sorry that I don't have all the answers for you today, but I know this project is something that you guys, nobody likes evaluating software, nobody. People really don't like talking to me, and that's fine. I got a thick skin. But, you know, I get it, and I want to make sure that if you do choose Avalara, and if Avalara can meet all of your needs, that it's exactly what we discussed and exactly what you bought. So it may take a little time. I appreciate the patience. I'll get answers for you. If I don't know, I'm going to tell you that I don't know, but I'll find an answer for you. So I think what I'll do now is if you guys can send me over some dates and some times that work for your team there internally from the tax team there, I'll set up some calls with people that get paid a lot more money than I do to answer these questions, and kind of continue with the evaluation at that point.
Okay.
Were there any questions for the NetSuite folks, for the implementation folks from a NetSuite side, NetSuite consultant, NetSuite team developers? Were there any questions that I could answer for you folks while you're on the call?
Well, I believe that the item setup, I saw there you have a tax code there, so there are codes coming out from the Avalara table. So that is a work that will be done by us, or identify which tax codes to use by each item.
Because we set up a nexus, and currently the way in a one world account we add additional countries and jurisdictions through a nexus, and that's what then we assign on every item. So with your tax codes, with us choosing just like the AVA generic tax on every transaction, on an item setup level, how do you go about doing it? Is it something that we have to do ourselves or by internally, or do you provide assistance with that?
We provide assistance on that. So essentially what would happen is all of the items, and I'll jump back to NetSuite. So if you look here at your item master, these would get categorized. So we've got a software package here. We would edit the software package, and then there is an appropriate AvaTax code that would be placed. We would put a tax code right here. So part of the go live process with Avalara is that you have a mapping call to where we take all of your items with this internal ID, categorize them into appropriate categories, and assign an appropriate Avalara tax code to them. We export a lot of information out of NetSuite, input it, and then import it back in.
Right. So does that require a change on the Nexus setup?
No, it does not.
Okay.
No. The only thing the Nexus setup will do is let AvaTax know that it needs to give a sales tax calculation and reporting on that particular jurisdiction.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay.
So for the Australian region, NetSuite currently produces a BAS statement, which is pretty much like the electronic file that can be downloaded as is and then can be submitted for tax purposes. Is that something that will be overridden by AvaTax once it's applied for all jurisdictions and all countries?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
AvaTax will override everything.
Okay. But it'll give us a similar alternative, I guess, a similar BAS statement that we can use here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as I showed before, if you ever need to see the invoice or see anything in regards to it, you would just simply go to the console and you can look at everything you need to.
Okay, thanks. So no further questions from us. Thank you.
Are we good? Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good.
So Chris, this is Corey. Before we end the meeting, could you just kind of read back to me the actions that you have on your list? I want to line them up with what I have, and then you and I can follow up and get those dates scheduled for the tax team. Did we lose him?
Did they hang up? Where'd you go, Chris? Hello?
I heard
Chris.
I think your system dropped.
Yeah, I heard something drop, so we may have lost
let's see if he's joined. So I've got that he needs to follow up on some to show you guys how to do the returns yourself.
Right.
The second thing. Chris, you back?
Yeah, sorry guys, I don't know what happened.
You got booted out of your own meeting.
Hey, it's not the first time and it won't be the last time, and it never fails. It always happens on a live demonstration, and it's always near the end.
At least we didn't hang up on you.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I'm glad you didn't. Sorry, did I finish answering the question? Did you guys get to hear the end of the?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. No problem. No problem.
So Chris,
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't think there's any more questions here, but this is Corey. Just want to make sure we've got the right things for follow-up items so that you and I can figure out a time to get some time scheduled with the tax team or whomever you guys need to see those follow-up items. So can you just go through with me what you have written down as your follow-ups?
Sure. So the biggest item that we need to look at is our cert capture product. We need to be able to determine if because contracts are tax exempt, so when you're entering that contract and mark it as exempt, can we automatically set off a series of events to make sure that we get the right certificate on file? Secondly, when that request goes out to the nonprofit, it needs to be as simple as possible. We need to make sure that it's simple, it's easy to understand, it's just clicking a few buttons and there you go. We need to be able to customize the certificates and customize what you're looking for to make it very specific to your company without any additional cost. That needs to happen. So my action item is to get you on a call with the director of the cert capture product to go into a lot more detail about the functionality with that. Second action item has to do with returns. You want us to automatically, if possible, populate the forms and then let you folks do what you need to do from that standpoint. E-file them, mail them out, and remit payment to each jurisdiction. So provide the information up to a point, but don't outsource the actual filing and the remittance fees. Those are the two items that I've got from an action standpoint.
Yeah. And just on the cert, just one more thing, just to make sure that the ability, when we think about customization, that we can add additional forms or additional requirements that the states may have. If you need to provide, if the customer needs to provide their nonprofit exempt information in a PDF document or some other kind of information, then we need to have the ability to do that. That was Nick's point earlier. That's when we think about customization.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we pretty much need to give you folks the ability to make these forms extremely easy for the end user and give you everything that you need to file them correctly with the state, whatever that entails.
Yep.
And you want everything to be in one package. You guys don't want to have 4 or 5 different vendors performing 4 or 5 different activities. If Avalara can satisfy all of your requirements on an end-to-end solution, that becomes an easy part for me. That becomes an easy job for me, the sales guy. Because if we can provide all the functionality, it would make sense for you to go with Avalara instead of buying 4 or 5 different contracts. That wouldn't make sense. So that's my goal.
Depending on the cost. You got to make sure we got cost to the factor, and that's all this too. There's a
cost is always a factor. Cost is always a factor. Trust me.
Speaking of cost, I think I had a third item here, and that was on the mailings.
Yes.
That you guys had. So we want to understand how you would do the mailings, if it's your professional services team, how much that costs per mailing, so we can understand that a little bit better.
And we're going to ultimately want to cost all the software packages too.
Right.
At the end of the day.
The whole shishkebab, everything.
And we'll put all that together. So once we make sure that we have all the functionality correct, because I mean, you may mention we may not be able to do everything. I'm not even going to make that assumption until we just vet everything out. Once everything's been vetted and everybody understands what you're going to buy, if you decide to buy it, that's when we'll talk about pricing and budget.
Okay. Good.
Fair enough?
Good.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. So
Chris,
Corey,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so Corey, just let me know. I'll send you an email with these action items, so we have them in an email instead of just the conversation. That way I have a record of it. I have it on my side so I can refer back. And then I will just let me know what dates and times works for that team there, and then I'll start setting up everything on my end.
All right.
Sounds good.
That work?
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for the time. Sorry I don't have all the answers, but we'll find them.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right. Y'all have a great day.